If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones. Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support. So the UFC was the focal point of the sports world this past weekend, which says a lot when the NFL is in full swing and the NBA is right around the corner. But that's what happens when Conor McGregor is on pay-per-view against a killer like Khabib Nurmagomedov, and it was exactly what we thought it was going to be. It was a shit show. Pardon my language, but that's the best way to put it. And we're going to get to the main card first because I think it's important to highlight what was an amazing display of the UFC and mixed martial arts and combat sports, and just if you're into that type of thing, I think it was a great card with some interesting stuff. But let's get into just a couple of the winners. Michelle Waterson over Felicia Herrig in decision. It was Derek Lewis with a comeback behind win. Literally, the equivalent for all you baseball fans is, imagine if you were down, bases loaded, bottom of the ninth in the NLCS, ALCS. You're about to make it to the World Series, and you hit a grand slam. Because he was down that whole fight, and with maybe 13 seconds left, Derek Lewis lands that huge hit over Volkov. Huge. Dominic Reyes all over St. Peru in a unanimous decision. And in the fight of the night, Tony Ferguson beats Anthony Pettis by TKO, and that fight had it all. Tony Ferguson was trying to beat down Showtime, and Pettis was in there, wobbled him a few times, really hurt him. You saw Tony, and mind you, for all you who really don't follow MMA, we're only watching it as, for the spectacle that was the Conor fight. Tony Ferguson destroyed his knee maybe 6 months ago. An injury that easily could take 9, 10, 11 months, and is back 6 months beating a former champion. One of the most dangerous guys in the division in Anthony Showtime Pettis. Tony is the number one contender. And we saw a lot from it. The problem right now is what's going on with Conor and Khabib. Because Tony, we saw it there, and Showtime is a tough dude, and his corner had to stop it. It looked like he broke his hand, and this is going into the third round, I believe. So it was a tough fight, and we saw a lot of grit from him. We saw how tough that division is. But now that's almost been squared away, where we know where Tony stands, we know he's healthy. And by the way, didn't use a doctor. He rehabbed himself, which is great. The dude's an animal. And now we get to the main event. So before we get to what happened after the main event, we actually have the fight. And I was saying all over social media and other shows, well, yes, it was easy to pick Khabib. It was. There's nothing you can say. He has the best ground and pound. He has the best wrestling. He's just the best. He's a unicorn when it comes to that. You listen to his peers talk about him, and you hear it in their voice when it almost seems like they've never seen anything like this. And we've seen it in some of his fights where the guys' faces, when they realize, like, not just his strength, but that you're almost helpless in there with him when he's got you in that situation. And of course, it's hard. It's easy for us to say that because we're on the outside looking in and we really would be helpless against them. And, obviously Conor knew ways to try to get out of it. It's just that's how much better Khabib is on the ground compared to anybody else, at least right now. So heading into the fight, my thinking has always been Conor has the magical factor that you can't duplicate, you can't put science to it, you can't put logic to it. You really can't. But you can talk about the devastating left punch of Conor McGregor, his movement, how fluid he is, how he gets into your head, how he's going to try to drown you and he's going to try to drop you, he's going to try to counter you. All true. And it is part of the dynamic. But then there's that X factor. There's that it almost seems special, magical when he's in there. It's the Ali factor. It's the Tyson factor. It's the Mayweather factor. No matter the type of fighter they are, it's that they're always in it. And there's always that fighter's punch, right? That fighter's chance. And in MMA, maybe that chance to get a rear naked or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like one of those moments that there's just some sort of good, mojo, juju, whatever that goes their way. And I thought, and I have no problem saying, I thought Conor was going to win this fight. And it had nothing to do with believing the hype of Conor. Like I'm typically somebody who's believed where if you could get past, for poor Jose Aldo, who had to go on a world tour dealing with Conor McGregor. But I think I've always believed that if you could get past that, Conor can be got. Because like anybody else, he punches hard. He's got knockout power. And he's got the best knockout power in his weight class. But we saw it in the Diaz fight. And we've just seen that you can get to him. You just got to either be on his level and it just can't phase you. And we get to the fight. I mean, we've seen it in the press conferences. We saw it into the weigh-ins. Khabib wasn't having any of it. He just wasn't. And it was personal to him, but in a different level. It wasn't just, oh, I'm angry, I want to punch him hard in the face. He doesn't like Conor. And we saw it in the fight. There was in the third round, Conor got him a few times. Conor caught him with that uppercut. Conor was hitting the body. But that first, second, and obviously where the fight ended in the fourth round, Khabib had him and was working him. Conor was in that fight. Don't let the ending mistake it, especially for people who don't really watch it or are listening to people who don't really watch it. Don't get mistaken. Conor was in that fight every second of it. That's just how good Khabib is. He's just that great at what he does, at what he's special at, especially on the ground. So we get to the moment with I guess they're calling it a neck crank, whatever you want to technically call it, because it wasn't quite on the neck, but it wasn't under the chin, and it was on the face more than was anything. So whatever, we get to that moment, and sure enough, hell breaks loose, and you have Khabib going after Conor guys, Khabib guys going after Conor. People are swinging on each other. Dana won't give Khabib the belt because he doesn't want mayhem in the arena. Bottom line, and you've seen the video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's cut all the BS. I even posted it, was this idea of like, hey, let's not feel too bad for Conor because of the Dolly thing. But we also have to take in mind it's a separate issue too, though. Yes, it's part of the story. You can attribute anything to it. It doesn't make it excusable, though. It's not excusable. And it's a separate issue when you're talking about in an arena where paying customers are at. Where the Dolly situation happened, that was only fighters. And yeah, it's a dangerous situation, but there's a mindset that changes. It wasn't in front of pay-per-view buyers. It wasn't covered the same. And it wasn't a paid audience. And that's where the problem comes in. Do I think Nurmagomedov should be stripped from his title? No. The title should not be stripped, period. He won the fight. Decisively, he won the fight. Should he be suspended? Absolutely. Should the guys who swung on Conor, especially the guy in the red and all that, look, we already know they're not going to face any criminal charges. They're going to have a hard time coming to the country because of visas and whatnot, but yeah, they're probably never gonna fight in the UFC at the very least. But Khabib, no. Like you don't do that. You suspend them, and this is what I think is gonna end up happening. And smarter, more connected minds of mine are kind of putting these two things together. Is you're gonna have Khabib probably get suspended for about 12 months, so a year essentially. And I think what they're gonna do is they're going to put an interim title on Conor and Diaz, or probably Dustin Poirier and Nate will. Whoever wins that fight will fight Conor next. And that will be for the interim title, and then they will go and fight. One of them will fight Khabib on the return. Or Nate and Conor create the 165 title. And then you could try to market Conor as your three-division champion. Only ever. And that makes sense, too, because you just signed him to this big contract. You're working him with sponsorship. I mean, look, we all want to keep the purity of the sport, but they invested a lot of money in him, so they're going to try to do something. So, you have this situation, though, and do I think it's good for the UFC? I think in the long run, it all ends up being good because it's all publicity, and bad publicity, good publicity. All publicity is good publicity. That's just the fact of it, right? But I don't know. I don't know if this one was different because Conor didn't win and because it seemed much more dirty. It seemed cheap. It seemed like cheap shotting this. It seemed like that didn't need to happen. And people want to bring up culture and stuff. It's like, it doesn't, you're still professional. And there's a lot of people, especially in the UFC, who've had tough upbringings who don't act that way, who are complete professionals. Khabib's got to be better than that. And look, I'm not even taking into consideration all the rumors and conspiracy theories and what may be facts, what may not be facts of, Conor's with Khabib's political background and who he surrounds himself with. And you heard Conor bring that up a lot. And that's the thing, like, yeah, to some people it's just a show, right? It's just that the pre-fight and the lead up to the fight is just WWE. We're gonna bring it up, we're gonna talk it up, and we're going to do our best to sell this fight. Some people are just there to fight. And it doesn't make it right or wrong, but that's where we're at right now. And look, I get people don't want to blame Dana. I'm not gonna blame Dana White. But it's Dana's influence that's allowed this to happen. He can't control these things, and this wasn't staged. Look, I would understand, like the Dolly thing, I could go with you for a little bit if you wanted to use the conspiracy theories to say that was staged. These were paying customers. Whenever you have paying customers in the line of danger, you have police officers in the line of danger, politicians in the line of danger on pay-per-view, and it's a Russian and an Irishman in a sport that some people already call barbaric. It's not a good look. It's different. It's different. Should it be? That's a conversation we can all have at the bar, at the coffee shop, over dinner. It doesn't matter. That's a different topic. What it is that, though. It's a different scenario. Quite frankly, the leash is a little bit shorter because it's not Conor. It's a less famous dude. It doesn't matter how good Nurmagomedov is in the octagon. It doesn't matter. In that situation, he screwed himself. He really did. And it sucks because that was a hell of a performance. That should be his crowning achievement. But I will counter it with, it might be bigger now because the moment will forever live forever. It's not just he kicked Conor's ass. Then there's this. So it will live forever. And trust me, if and when they ever fight each other, they will use it for the promotional run. What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones. Orlando, how you doing,
How
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
It was a bye week for the Chicago Bears, but the NFL kept going on for week 5, and we got kicked off with the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. The Patriots with a 38-24 win. And then on Sunday, it was the Jets over the Broncos 34-16. The Lions beating the Packers 31-23. And the NFC North is in all types of turmoil with the Bears in first place. It was the Carolina Panthers 33, the New York Giants 31, with a last-second field goal for the Panthers to get the W. It was the Bills 13 over the Titans 12. Marcus Mariota, that team looks hurt. Is Derrick Henry a good running back? What happens when you don't have Delaney Walker? There's a lot of questions over there. You have the Falcons dropping to the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-41. You talk about a team that is hurt, is that Atlanta Falcons team. And the worst part is I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, and it looks like they might be a top 10 draft pick. So, and Pittsburgh, the rumors of Le'Veon Bell coming back. So them getting back on the winning streak, and they kind of had to because the Browns beat the Ravens 12-9. And again, that division, like every year, is just up in the air. Who knows how that's going to work out. The Browns starting to walk around with a little bit of confidence. Starting to look like they have some pieces together. It's really interesting to see how that plays out. And then obviously with the Ravens, it's that offense could just get so stagnant sometimes. You know, obviously for all you fantasy football players, I have John Brown. And he has 14 targets, but he gets 3 receptions, and they're just not able to move that ball with no running game. So interesting to see how that division is going to play out. It looks like if Pittsburgh could just stick around, if you don't bury them, they're probably going to end up winning this division. And that I wouldn't have said that 2 weeks ago. It was the Bengals 27 over the Dolphins 17. Kansas City all over Jacksonville 30-14. Leonard Fournette out again, and it looks like he might be out for week 6. And no Allen Robinson on that team, and Blake Bortles himself. So very interesting to see that offense kind of just be stagnant the way it is too, and that defense. And again, Kansas City looked really good, and it's just amazing. It's going to be the story of this Jacksonville team, where they should win a lot of these games, and they make stops when they have to. But Ramsey was all over Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill didn't do anything. So he had one big play, but compared to what we've seen him do all season. So let's see how Jacksonville bounces back. It was the Chargers 26 over the Raiders 10, and the Raiders are looking to be probably one of the worst teams in the NFL. Just horrible decision-making this offseason. And the worst part is they have 9 more years of John Gruden left. It was the Vikings with a much-needed win over the Philadelphia Eagles 23-21. Again, this is coming off of the NFC North was, it's in a weird spot right now. And the question a lot of people are asking is how good and who is the best team in the NFC North? And I think even with the way the schedule's been worked out and you look at who's been playing who, I still think Minnesota's the best team in this division. And we'll get to the standings in just a little bit. But, Vikings with a big, big win. It was the Rams 33 over the Seahawks 31. The Rams look like probably the best team in the NFL. You got to give them that at the very least. They look like the best team in the NFC at the very least. It was the Cardinals over the 49ers 28-18. The 49ers don't look the same without Jimmy Garoppolo. And it was the Texans over the Cowboys 19-16 on Sunday Night Football. Texans, again, Bill O'Brien is going to hold that offense back. I think when you have DeAndre Hopkins with one of the craziest Madden-like moves at the end of the game. So Texans have a lot of pieces. It'd be nice if they just, they had like a Sean McVay type of coach that would get that offense going. And it's starting to go for Garrett. And whether or not he's on the coaching hot seat again, it seems like he's in it every single year. And on Monday Night Football, in a record-breaking game for Drew Brees and his Saints over Washington, 43-19. And the conversation then begins for Drew Brees if he's top 5 quarterback. I mean, if he wins another Super Bowl, if New Orleans sneaks in and they find a way to get him one more Lombardi trophy, he's up there. He's got to be. So why don't we check on the standings really fast in the AFC East? Just when everybody thought they were dead on their second straight victory, the Patriots are 3-2, the Dolphins 3-2, the Bills 2-3, and the Jets 2-3. Oh, how things change so fast in the National Football League. Please don't check us out in the archives because I probably buried them. In the AFC West, it's the Kansas City Chiefs with a 5-0 record on top of that division. The Chargers are 3-2, Broncos 2-3, and the Raiders at 1-4. In the AFC North, it is the Bengals at 4-1, the Ravens at 3-2, the Browns at 2-1, and the Steelers 2-1. That division is murderous row every single year. In the AFC South, it is the Titans and 3-2. That one still surprises me. They don't play like a team that should be in first place, but especially after you lose to the Bills. But that's how that thin line is in the NFL. And the Jaguars at 3-2 after that loss to Kansas City. Texans at 2-3, and the lonely Colts at 1-4. In the NFC East, it is Washington at 2-2, the Cowboys at 2-3, the Eagles at 2-3, and the Giants at 1-4. It seems like if the Eagles just wake up, if they just play a complete game, they'll probably win this division hands down, because I don't think any one of these other teams is any good. The NFC West, it is the Rams at 5-0, the only other team left in the NFL with an undefeated record. The Seahawks at 2-3, the Cardinals at 1-4, and the Niners at 1-4. Pretty easy division for the Rams and the outside looking in, but we'll see how that plays out. See if Seattle makes a run at the very end. Looks like everything is kind of crumbling down over in the Pacific Northwest. In the NFC South, it is the Saints at 4-1, the Panthers at 3-1, the Buccaneers at 2-2, the Falcons at 1-4. I mean, they are decimated with injuries, and Julio Jones still no touchdowns, but that surprises me a little bit. And of course, with the Saints and the Panthers, I'm telling you, this just kind of has a weird feeling to it. I had the Falcons winning the Super Bowl this year, but it looks like it could be the Saints out of that division that goes all the way. And in the NFC North, it is the Chicago Bears 3-1, the Packers at 2-1, the Vikings at 2-1, and the Lions at 2-3. And this is the division I ask anybody, who's the best team in that division? Because the best defense is the Chicago Bears, hands down, right? Who has the best quarterback? Well, when healthy is Aaron Rodgers. Even with one leg, I think it's Aaron Rodgers, right? Best wide receiver group? Probably Detroit with Galladay, Jones, and Golden Tate. Chicago probably has the best running back group in that division. The Vikings probably have the best team dynamic, I guess. The strongest team. They've been there before at the very least. They've been through a lot of battles together, for whatever that's worth. But, I mean, I think for them it's Kirk Cousins, and he's the X factor and all that. If Kirk Cousins is not an elite quarterback, and whatever that's worth, whatever that means in this spectrum of life, because we've overused that word, he has to be that for them to be able to do any type of damage in the NFC North. And not just in the NFC North, but for the long if they make a playoff run. But very interesting stuff in Week 5. We look forward to Week 6. For all of you who are Bears fans, the Bears are back, and we will get to them in just a little bit because they start getting ready for another AFC East opponent. But the Eagles take on the Giants on Thursday night football. Then on Sunday, it is the Buccaneers and the Falcons, Chargers and the Browns, Colts and the Jets, Seahawks versus Raiders, Panthers versus Washington. It is the Bills and the Texans, Cardinals versus Vikings, Steelers versus Bengals. That is a heavyweight fight right there. That's going to be a fun one. Bears versus Dolphins. Who would have thought two teams that right now are very much in the middle of the division race? Rams versus Broncos, Ravens versus Titans, Jaguars versus Cowboys, Chiefs versus Patriots on Sunday Night Football. That right there. You talk about if you were building yourself a pay-per-view card, kind of following the lining of this episode. If you're building yourself a pay-per-view card, you're looking at Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati. You're looking at Chiefs versus Patriots as your main event. So you have your co-main event and you have your main event already just on that matchup alone. That's huge. And then if you wanted to, kind of be generous, you have Bears-Dolphins. You have a first-place team and a team that's in second place right now fighting the New England Patriots. And then on Monday Night Football, it is the San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers. And I bet you when they were making this one, they were so excited for Jimmy Garoppolo versus Aaron Rodgers. But now you have a one-legged Aaron Rodgers and no Jimmy G, so we'll keep an eye on that. But another fun time in the National Football League. Let us know, how'd your fantasy teams do? How'd your favorite team do? And what game are you looking forward to the most in Week 6 of the NFL? Thank you guys for keeping it with us. I'm Mike Mercado. You're on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airways Network.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, Mike Mercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones. Orlando, how you doing,
How
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support. We're back here at the Mercado Airwaves studio with friend of the show, Paul Chivari. It is, we still have Paul on, even though the Cubs decided to put a goose egg in this playoff basket. But nonetheless, we love our sports. That is baseball, our summer tradition, and we couldn't do it without our best friend, one of the dudes that's always been part of this process and part of this journey, and it is Paul Chivari, one of the best in the business. Paulie Dangerous, welcome back on the show, brother.
Thanks for having me. I feel like every time I appear on your podcast, I always commit like a verbal error and get the yips and bobble the ball. So glad that so far we're off to a good start.
Oh, we almost messed it up there, but with the magic of editing, they'll never know.
No, this is all live. This is true.
Yeah, this is true. All right. Yeah, you know what? Here, I'll be fair to Paul. He didn't flub up this time, so no editing was done in the beginning of this one. But a troublemaker. Thank you again, buddy. I really appreciate you taking some time. I know you've been busy all day on the grind, and now you're back on to the coverage of today. We are going back to Yankees, Red Sox, and that one in its own it has its own interesting storyline going up. You have Boston up 2-1 over the Yankees. Hell of an ass beating a few days back for all you who are listening to this just now. And that series, obviously, with Boston up 2-1. But now we also know what the National League Championship Series is, with the Dodgers and Brewers both making it. And we obviously know that whoever's waiting for the Red Sox and Yankees is the Houston Astros after a domination of the Cleveland Indians. So, Paulie, why don't we go into, and for all those who were listening to us last week, Paulie and I have decided that we're going to do a in memoriam, a retrospect of the 2018 season of both the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs. That will be dropping in the network the same week we are doing our breakdown of the NBA and NHL seasons to start. So it's a cool little way to end one season and really start to train for the next season. And thank you again, Paul, in advance for going deep into that with me. But why don't we go into the American League first, since that's kind of your mainstay throughout the regular season. What did you think, first of all, about the Cleveland and Houston series? I mean, obviously, a lot of people liked Houston. Over 100 wins, one of the most dominated teams in the sabermetrician era. So let's get into that first. Did you think it would be that much of a domination?
No, I didn't. In fact, I thought the Indians would outpitch the Astros enough to get it to a Game 5 before the series started, of course. And I had in my predictions the Indians actually winning that series because I thought that they could do it on the backs of Carlos Carrasco, Corey Kluber, and I thought maybe Trevor Bauer would get a start, but Mike Clevenger proved that he was capable and was probably the best starter that the Indians had in that series. I was really shocked that they got off to a wrong foot with Kluber getting blown up in the fourth inning of that game in Game 1, and I think that really set the tone for the series. But I didn't expect the Indians' bats to be that quiet, and obviously you can point to that being kind of the big storyline of the series was the lack of production from your 3, 4, and 5 hitters, and that's what Ramirez, Encarnacion, and Donaldson. And, I don't want to take anything away from the Houston Astros. Obviously, they got great pitching. They got amazing offense. But I really think that silencing those bats in the middle really made it such a one-sided series.
Now, let's kind of look back at what this means big picture-wise. Obviously, we know how this is helping Houston's legacy. They're in the middle of building theirs alongside the Dodgers and the Cubs. That they're kind of the three teams right now, and the Indians in its own respect. But let's talk about 16 for a second, and we're going to break down all of 2018 about the Cubs and White Sox on next week's Sports on the Couch special edition on the Mercado Airwaves Network with Mike Mercado and special guest Paul Chivari. But I wonder how big that 16 World Series is. Was it more important for the Cubs or the Indians? You know what I'm saying? Like this idea of, and there was a great article, it might have been The Athletic that brought it up, just the turmoil of they've almost stood still as Houston has passed them, and they dropped it to the Cubs. How devastating was that 16 World Series to that Cleveland Indians team? Because you look at them right now, and it just seems you can only get so far. You can only get to the mountaintop so many times without planting the flag before you just run out of gas the next time up, right?
Oh, exactly. I think you're really onto something there. And one of the biggest takeaways after that thrashing by the Astros over the Indians was will the Indians window close? They might have one more season here where they can make a run, but they're going to have a lot of free agents coming up in the next couple of years here. And you saw some of their core pieces not be the same they were in 2016. Cody Allen at closer role really struggled. Andrew Miller having injuries. Right. You point to those two guys right there, and that Indians bullpen was not the same Indians bullpen that they were in 2016. And I think that's an important thing to look at. Given how the American League Central Division looks with its prospects for next season, I know it's way too early to really project anything, but you'd like to think that the Indians will be the favorite going to 2019, given that the Royals, the White Sox are in the middle of a rebuild. Tigers are still trying to figure it out. I think they exceeded expectations, at least mine this year. And the Twins, you just don't know with them, but, the Twins fired their manager, Paul Molitor, and then I don't know if you heard about Miguel Sano, had an altercation, I think, in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, wow.
Something to do with, I want to say, he ran over a police officer.
Oh, wow.
So he's looking at some serious trouble right now. Sano didn't really have that great of a season this year, but he was still young and flashes some power. So, I mean, that's a big building piece that the Twins were hoping to get, and now we don't even know what his status is for 2019. So given all that with the division, what we see right now, the Indians are probably the early favorite right now to, really prematurely forecast it. At the same time, their window's closing soon, and that's where you get White Sox turning their around. Everyone around here talks about the White Sox being ready by 2020, and perhaps that's premature as well. But that's going to be an interesting division if the Cleveland Indians are on a downswing and the rest of the division is kind of building back up. So, I mean, it could be a very variable, a lot of variance in the 20s to see which team starts running away with it. And it could be a new contender every year based on how some of these teams are trying to build themselves.
And it's funny for all you who are wondering exactly what Paulie means, because let's say if you're here in the Chicago market and you really don't quite understand what he means by windows or that type of championship pedigree type of thing. So the big thing that I attribute it to is let's use that 16 because it's the most recent experience where we see both teams that are still trying to be consistent competitors. I think the big thing is the Band-Aid effect. And you look at, let's say, the Chicago Cubs, and we'll talk a little bit about it on the special edition next week. But if you look at the Cubs, one of the biggest issues is the Addison Russell issue. You don't know exactly what you're going to do up the middle in the infield, right? They have the option where if somehow they can make Machado and they can woo him, they can have that option where, the process was slowed down of Addison Russell, and maybe, you needed to do this with David Bodie, and maybe you needed to move this guy to the outfield. Being able to develop, but also fix it with Band-Aids, with players that theoretically are 4-star, 5. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's that difference where Cleveland does not have that benefit that they can't Band-Aid things. Their window is their window, and if it doesn't happen in that time, if they do not capitalize at that time, it just doesn't happen for teams like that. Do you notice that as well? Like the Yankees. The Yankees go through a little bit of a rebuild. You bring a free agent right here. You develop a little bit of talent. All of a sudden, a 5-year project becomes 2 years. Do you think Cleveland is going to really be hindered by that?
Yeah, I mean, with them being a small market, obviously their hands are kind of tied behind their back when you compare them to the Cubs and the Yankees, who have larger payrolls. And free agency is a big part of why teams are successful. You can build a core all you want, but one of the common denominators with all the playoff teams this year was, despite the fact that they had some homegrown talent, they definitely had to supplement it through free agency and especially trade. Mm-hmm. Just off the top of my head, I don't know what the Indians have in their farm system, but it severely hurt them, I think, to trade Francisco Mejia earlier this year. They received Brad Hand and I want to say another pitcher for Mejia, who was going to be a catcher, maybe a first baseman DH, but primarily a catcher, one of the top prospects at the catching position, and they completely get rid of him to try and win in this year. So, I mean, I think that speaks numbers to how important this window was for the Indians, from 2015 to present, how bad they wanted to win that World Series. And I know this is going way back to your last question, but, yeah, I mean, it really shows how close they were to win the World Series and how important that was in 2016, and now how hard it will be for them to get back there, even though next year they might have a little bit of an opening. But, they went and got Josh Donaldson. He's not the same player as he was when he was MVP 3 years ago. They signed Encarnacion to a good contract in the offseason. And they still have Lindor, Brantley, Ramirez. So we'll see. Jason Kipnis has kind of fallen out since 2016. They still have that pitching staff, so there are some pieces there. But, you're going to have free agents. You're not going to have the payroll like the big dogs do, like the Red Sox, Yankees, Cubs do, to spend and keep guys there. And then you don't know what those guys are going to be like after next season. So, especially the way you see Miller and Allen, the way they've performed this year, they were the key pieces at the end of the bullpen for the Indians in 2016 while they were successful, whereas in 2018 they really didn't do much for you here in the playoffs. So it's going to be an interesting state of affairs for the Indians coming up here in the next season.
I'm very excited to get more deep into this with you, Paulie, about the AL Central, kind of see what your thoughts are about the White Sox looking down the barrel that is the Cleveland Indians, and whether or not it's a Nerf gun or an AK-47. And we'll know a little bit more as the years go on. They have a lot of awesome weapons in, Lindor, and we've seen what this team can do when healthy, when they're in the right position. But like you said, you got to be able to win when that window's open and it's there for the taking. And we won't spend too much time on the Astros because they're still in it, and there's a lot of baseball to be played in the ALCS, obviously. But the one thing I want to ask you about Houston is, do you believe that they're playing for something bigger than let's say some of the obviously anybody in the playoffs right now was looking to win the World Series. A lot of teams were trying to build and continue on their legacies. But it almost seems to me with Houston it's always kind of been a purpose to them where they want to be the team of the era. I don't think they appreciated people believing the Cubs were or the Royals are, or I think this team has a little bit of a swag nobody talks about because it's Houston. Am I wrong? Am I not seeing that?
I think they definitely have, because of that youth and the way they built this team, I think that there's definitely a chemistry. There's something fun going on in that locker room. And it's such a well-built team. You saw what happened when they added Justin Verlander to what was already a great team last year and what that did to them and got them over the hump where they became the champions really in their first year where they're available to. I know they made the American League wild card in 2015, but they were a little bit early on in their process. They were young. we kind of
Like the Cubs, it was weird. That 15 was weird because you didn't realize that you were seeing the next two World Series champions in the wild card games. We had no idea that we were watching that development.
Well, I mean, I think there was an inkling of it, though.
Right,
You know,
okay,
you
fair.
had,
Yeah. There was a tingling. You had that spider sense going a little bit, but to think that 3 years from then, we'd be talking about they're the perennial favorites every year. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that has to do with the way, when you compare the Astros and the Cubs, the way they built these teams. And, of course, with the Astros adding Garrett Cole to already, and I think, you can still see it, that locker room. There's just something going on there where, the guys must really all like each other. They don't have to depend on, Jose Altuve to do all the production. I mean, in that last series, you got great production out of Reddick, out of Marlon Gonzalez, out of Bregman, especially. So that guy is like Carlos Correa, who's having some issues. I think he has some back problems right now, which is leading to a lack of production on his offense. Those other guys can carry the guys that aren't putting up the good numbers. So I think that's something to kind of keep an eye out for, where, you got a new guy stepping up every day, and that's what you want out of success in the playoffs is the guy, the guy that you don't think is going to be your contributor contributing. And the Astros are finding ways to do it. I mean, I know it's a small sample size with that short series with the Indians, but they looked like killers coming into the playoffs. They looked like killers in the playoffs. And I think the Red Sox, if they win tonight, should really be worried about the Astros, because I want to say in 7 games this year, the Astros won 4 of them. I know that's pretty down the middle, but 7 games in the regular season, 7 games in the playoffs. The goal is to win 4 anyway. So these Astros look good enough to get back to the World Series, and if they get back to the World Series, if they're still getting that concert, the contributions that they got last year, with George Springer, who's just out of, I don't know if they come out of nowhere, but I don't know what he's eating for breakfast every day, but he's got to keep doing it. In 2 years, he already has the most Astros home runs in postseason history.
Well, whatever he's eating, we need that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like Jeff Bagwell is not even number 1. It's number 1 is Springer with 10, and I think number 2 is Altuve with 8. I want to say. So I mean, that just tells you how great this Astros team is, that they're already making that much history just a couple of years into this. So yeah, I mean, they could repeat this year. And I was trying to think of the last time we had a repeat champion, and I want to say that was the Yankees.
The Yankees, yeah.
Yankees, when they went on like 4 in the span of 5 years or something like that, or 3 in the span of 4.
Yeah, I think it was the 4 straight years, 99 to 03, 98 to 03, I think 97, some weird stuff. In the mid-90s when Derek Jeter was a babyface and big celebrities.
2000. Yeah, 98, 99, 2000 they won. They lost in 01 by a base hit in Game 7. So they almost got so. And then they won in 96, but they didn't make it in 97. So, I mean, either way, that was an impressive run. And we have yet to see what the Astros can do. But, I mean, they're off to a good start right now with, if you count 2017 as the first year, let's see what they do this year. I wouldn't rule them out in 2019 and 2020 unless they really have trouble signing free agents or if injuries happen.
No, I agree. That looks like it's something that's there for the long haul. And I think we're all interested. I think it's good for baseball because there's a lot of matchups people want to see with Houston and Boston. And I think we'll head over to the Bronx and Fenway in just a second right now. And I kind of want to just break it down because to break the fourth wall, we are recording this right before first pitch of Game 4 of the ALDS between the Red Sox and Yankees. Red Sox up 2-1 in the series. So let's be fair. We won't really break down the game because we're so close to first pitch, and it'll be easy just to kind of give us crap because we're hindsight being 20/20. So I want to make it very general in this aspect. Does this go to a 5-game series? And if so, who has the advantage in a toss-up 50-50 game between the Red Sox and the Yankees?
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, Mike Mercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day that the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
How
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
Just off the top of my head, without knowing who's going to come into the game tonight pitching-wise, I would give the edge to the Red Sox. Just because they have Rick Porcello starting tonight in Game 4, and I would think that Chris Sale would get Game 5, and Sale looked pretty good in Game 5. Now that kind of messes things up with Porcello pitching tonight because, you know, he did come in big in Game 1 for the Red Sox, but, you know, I think right off the bat you got to say Red Sox would get the advantage being back at home at Fenway and having Chris Sale on the mound, and the fact that you now have taken Luis Severino out of a potential Game 5. I mean, he might be able to come in, but they already had him starting on 3 days rest last night. You saw what happened to Severino last night. I don't think I would feel comfortable if I'm Aaron Boone putting him in even for an inning on Thursday night unless I was absolutely desperate. But the Yankees do have enough pitching talent to bullpen their way through a must-win game. But it really all depends on what they can get out of CC Sabathia tonight. But I really got a strong feeling that the Red Sox are going to end up closing this thing out at Yankee Stadium. Yeah. It's hard to say, but darn, they looked really good last night, didn't they?
Yeah, and that's what the gut says too, right? Like you're pretty confident because I mean, with last night, that to me, here's the thing about beatdowns still in the playoffs. I think beatdowns bother me because you're preserving yourself at that point because you're in a series, you're trying to prolong it. Now you got to regroup and re-strategize. So for me, sometimes it's hard for me to gauge when it's a beatdown like that. I think what it is about Boston is there's this spark that never kind of went away because they got beat down by the Yankees. So they were able to move forward. So my question is, how do the Yankees respond tonight? And in a Game 5, with that opponent offense that the Yankees have, they're always in a game. If there's men on base, if there's extra bases that we can have, this team is going to score on you. And the bats seem to find the ball at the most opportune time if you're going against them, at least right now as they're developing. I'm really hard on Aaron Judge. I think that if he was a 6'9" Kansas City Royal, he wouldn't get the same amount of love that he gets in the Bronx. But fact remains is if you throw something down the middle, he's going to crush it 475 feet. So you got to be careful with Stanton. You have to be careful against this team. But I'm with you. I think this Boston team is too overwhelming. They come at you in too many different ways. They're like that boxer that breaks you down, that pushes forward, that's constantly coming at you. No matter how many times you throw a jab, a hook, whatever the case may be, unless you knock them down and that count of 10 happens, they're always in it. And they're just breaking your soul. So I'm going with the Red Sox in this one as well, buddy. But since I think we both agree this series, at the very least, is going to the Red Sox, we won't break it down too much. But as a baseball fan, how excited are you to see the Red Sox and Astros potentially in an ALCS?
Well, you seeing the Red Sox and Astros in the ALCS, I think that would be. I think that's what you were looking for all season. I think you get the best two American League teams based on what we saw in the 162 games this year. So yeah, I think it's good for baseball no matter what. I really think so far the way things are going, I think you're going to get the top four teams no matter how the Red Sox plays out. I think you're going to get the top four no matter what. But I think the edge goes to the Red Sox. I think a lot of people wrote the Red Sox off in the playoffs just because some of their pitching woes and just the way the Yankees are just massing the ball. Yeah. It just kind of looks like on paper going into it, based on where we are right now in the year, that it looks like the Yankees would have a bit of an advantage. and it sure looked like it was going to be the Yankees' way after Game 2 when they took away home field advantage from the Red Sox. But after last night, it's really hard to say. And, the Yankees came back down 0-2 last year in the ALDS to the Indians and had to win the last 3. And I want to say the Indians were the home team, if I'm not mistaken, in that series. So, they had to win 1 at Yankee Stadium, 2 in Cleveland in order to advance last year. So I wouldn't count the Yankees out, but I think they really put themselves at a disadvantage with Severino going on short rest in Game 3, whereas you could have had him go tonight at least, and try and, maybe go with him and then do what you did in the wild card game with Betances and Chapman and maybe Green or those guys, however you wanted to do it. And I think after using Chad Green last night, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage. But yeah, I think Red Sox Astros is going to be the primary series, and I really think the Red Sox have got to be ready for the Astros. I think based on what we've seen so far, the Astros look like the best team coming out of a divisional series.
Well, we'll know exactly when and where we're playing on Saturday, October 13th. But the day before that on Friday, yes, we are going to the National League. Yes, my heart is still broken. But I was able to have some therapeutic time with each and every one of you guys. So if you go back on the archives here in the Mercado Airwaves Network, you can kind of hear my initial thoughts, my reaction right as it was happening as the Chicago Cubs were eliminated from the playoffs in the one-game wildcard playoff against the Colorado Rockies, who absolutely got stomped by the buzzsaw that is the Milwaukee Brewers and the MVP that is Christian Yelich, and that is one of the most dominating bullpens that we've seen in the last 5 years. That goes right up there with all the other bullpens that have won World Series. The Dodgers beat my World Series pick from the National League in the Atlanta Braves, and we're now set for Brewers-Dodgers. It seems like the Dodgers can't escape the NL Central. It seems like the NL Central can't escape the Dodgers. My real problem with this is baseball was robbed. And I know Colorado fans are going to get mad at me, and I shout out to you Rocky fans, and some of them boys are some killers in that Rockies team, and if they didn't play in elevation, if they played at, let's say, Chase Field, they'd be a prominent problem in that NL West. But because of where they play 81 games, it's an issue. But baseball in the general public was robbed of potentially a great series in Cubs Brewers. Say what you will. Say the Brewers beat them anyway. I'm almost willing to bet the mortgage that the Brewers would have basically steamrolled the Cubs as well. The Cubs played up to the Brewers every step of the way, just like the Brewers did. That was the series we needed to see 5 games of. You're seeing it everywhere else in the playoffs, Paulie. And I'm not going to stick on the Cubs angle too much because we're going to talk all about that next week here on the Mercado Airways Network on Sports from the Couch. But I think you and I both agree. While we enjoy Colorado, we enjoy a lot of those guys because we watch the sport more often than not. I think the general public really wanted to see Cubs Brewers.
Oh, absolutely. I think you raise a good point there, Mike, that Cubs Brewers through the season felt like a playoff game in the 19 times that they played each other this year. So I think if you gave them a best of 5, I think you really would have gotten the best of both teams. Yes. I really do think the Cubs losing to the Rockies was kind of a sign of a bigger problem for the Cubs finally came to a head. But you never know. Like we were saying with the Cubs, you never know. You can't really count that team out until they're done. And I think it would have been good for our region, seeing the Milwaukee area and the Chicago area rally behind their teams and have the series be just divided by 90 miles.
That'd be great.
It would have been better for baseball, I think. I think it would have put the Brewers a little bit more on prime time. And I think
interesting.
A national perspective of the Brewers that I think some people might be missing that are kind of casual observers of this playoff series.
Yeah, and I think, but I think at the end of it, you've seen the showcase in the sense that you know they're the buzzsaw of the playoffs. Like every year, you could kind of just sniff it out, and you're like, oh, okay, that's the team where if you're not careful, the next thing you know, you'll be at home 1 week later. But let's go ahead and I really want to get your thoughts about the Cubs and what you think is going to happen over the next few months. But we're going to save that for next week. But let's give the audience a little bit of a taste. Let me ask you this: without in a minute, so we could break down the NLCS in just a little bit further. But in about a minute, what do you think is the biggest glaring problem right now with the Cubs?
Starting pitching. I think you had a little bit of a regression from Hendricks, not much, but you're not getting 2016 Hendricks. John Lester is going to be another year older. You know, Yu Darvish did not even come close to expectations, and he was injured this year, and you don't know what you're going to get out of him in the future. Tyler Chatwood was a bust. I mean, I hate to say it, but he was a total bust.
You're right.
Right spot was Cole Hamels, but I think he's got an option for $20 million.
And I think they're going to pick up, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, they want to pick it up, but I'm wondering
if.
Well, there might be a way if they can come up with a plan to waive the option, sign him for something cheaper. I don't know if Hamels would do that. It really depends on how bad Hamels wants to be back in Chicago. If I'm the Cubs, I would do it, but you're going to have even more problems with payroll. And I know this is for another show, but I think they're really. If you had Hamels, the free agent coming from the Rangers, the Cubs would have a little bit more leverage than Hamels, the restricted free agent with the team option already playing for you. So I'll just leave it at that. I think the first thing they got to look at is starting pitching. I mean, they have lots of problems that they need to address, but I think it starts with starting pitching. I think really would have helped the Cubs a little bit this year.
I cannot wait to get all your thoughts on that. I'm fascinated to see how far you think they are, how many moves are they from doing something, what they're going to do during the winter meetings. Paul is one of the best guys locally when it comes to really having a keen eye and trying to not just make guesses, kind of trying to have the pulse of what's going on. And at the very least, he's always a lot of fun to get the another perspective of. So I always appreciate Paul and what he brings to the table. And before we go ahead and let Paulie go and watch the Game 4 of Red Sox Yankees, let's talk a little bit Dodgers and Brewers. We've really talked up the Brewers the last month. Again, regionally, you and I have been watching them, all season long. We watch them every year, and we kind of knew what was coming. But with Dodgers, Braves, did you learn anything more about the Braves, or did you learn more about the Dodgers?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I would say I think I learned a little bit more about the Braves. In terms of, I guess I'm not surprised that the Dodgers kind of came out and the bats woke up and they get contributions from all sorts of different guys. With the Braves, though, you get a reaffirmation that Ronald Acuna is for real. Mm-hmm. To get the grand slam, especially after taking ball 4, which was called a strike against him, to just battle on the next pitch and just rip that thing. That's big. I think, you saw Freddie Freeman is the perfect leader for this team. I think, you saw that Mike Foltynewicz is, he took a step forward this year, and now we got a lot of playoff experience by pitching in 2 games. And the manager, Brian Snitker, who I can't see why he's not going to be named National League Manager of the Year. He really didn't seem down in the dumps after the series. He kind of seemed like he drew a lot of positives from it, and I think that's because they're a young team that has built a core. He's the right guy. In hindsight, he's the right guy to select to kind of groom this team of youngsters. And, they exceeded expectations this year and were able to, win the division and impress everyone in the regular season. Maybe not impress so much in the playoffs, but show that this is going to be a team to contend with in years down the road.
And going to the American League really fast, we're going to wrap this bad boy up. Paul has given us a lot of time, guys. We really appreciate him always coming in. Paul Chivari, expert of baseball, analyst for us here on Sports from the Couch and the Mercado Airways Network in the 2018 MLB playoffs and everything that is Major League Baseball throughout the regular season. So, Paulie, let's just assume we know what we'll play it this way. Since we know what the NLCS is, give me a winner and how many games first.
What's funny is my prediction off the bat, I believe, was Brewers in 7. Mm-hmm. Don't quote me on the amount of games, but I know I definitely picked the Brewers a week ago when before the divisional round kicked off. Around the time we talked last week is when I put that out there. And I've been right for the most part on everything except for that Astros-Indians series. I have Red Sox beating the Brewers in the World Series.
Okay. So we know we have an idea of what your World Series is. So why don't you give us an idea of how – give me an idea of how it plays out if do you think that – okay, first of all, do you think that the National League NLCS is going to be competitive, or do you think, like, what's your gut saying now? Because you said it in 7, but I think that was just more to kind of give you a basis of where your guess was going to go. But like now that we're here, do you think it's a 5, 6, 7 game series?
I want to say it's going to be a 7-game series, but that really all depends on. That's the thing about this is you don't know what the Brewers' rotation is going to be. They didn't really clue you in too much as to what they're going to look like. I mean, no one would have expected Wade Miley to be a playoff starter if you would have told me that 3 weeks ago. It's not surprising, but at the same time, Chacin definitely, maybe a Chase Anderson, maybe a Zach Davies, but not to have them not go and have Miley go instead of them, and then to have their bullpen game to start the whole series. I mean, whatever Craig Counsell's cooking over there, it seemed to work in their best of 5 where they only needed the 3 games. Now let's see what he does in the best of 7. And I don't think they've named a starter yet for game 1. I would guess it's going to be Chacin. Okay. I think it'd be safe to assume that they want to try and get the most innings to start the series with. Because you can't bullpen your way through a series and start with your bullpen. Brandon Woodruff, technically, yes, it's a bullpen game because he only went 3 innings, and that was the goal to begin with. But at the same time, he is starter caliber. So I don't know if the training wheels come off Brandon Woodruff in this next series where he actually gets to start and try and go about 5 or 6 innings, or what Craig Counsell has in mind. But he was saying something along the lines of, in the Rocky series at the beginning, of how, and I'm totally paraphrasing this, but something along the lines of kind of wiping away the roles, saying that, like, okay, if you're on the pitching staff, you're going to be in no matter where we put you. And that can really hurt teams sometimes, but at the same time, this is a really good pitching staff, especially in the bullpen. Almost to the point where the bullpen might have to carry the starters through this series. But I would imagine in a best of 7, going up against a great hitting team like the Dodgers, you're going to want your best foot forward with the Chacin, and want him to go at least 5 or 6 innings, and then after that, see what you got. And if the Dodgers are falling prey to that, then, maybe Miley goes in game 2 or 3. Maybe they bullpen their way through some of those games at home to try and get that advantage. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to forecast the series from that aspect where you don't know exactly what the Brewers are going to give you. I think it's safe to assume that Clayton Kershaw is going to go game 1 for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head about how Kershaw has fared against the Brewers. I can only pick out one time that he's faced them off the top of my head because I was there, but that was 7 years ago, and that was a different Brewers team, and that was a different Clayton Kershaw. But, Clayton Kershaw is an amazing pitcher in the postseason as of late, and he looked good in the divisional series. He is not the same pitcher he was a few years ago, but if you're the Brewers, you don't want to face a guy like that. And, let's see how Yelich, a left-handed hitter, fares against the left-handed pitching Kershaw. So game 1 might go to the Dodgers. And then will the Dodgers have total home field advantage at that point because the middle 3 are going to be playing in Los Angeles. So it's really hard to forecast it. I know I told you at the top of this question that I'm leaning Brewers, but I really kind of feel like after the divisional series, despite the fact that the Brewers swept the Rockies, I kind of feel like the Dodgers are the better team coming into this, and they have experience on their side. And if you look at the way that they've been building, it was last year they lost Game 7 of the World Series, so they're National League champions finally. 2016, they lost the National League Championship Series. 2015, they lost Game 5 of the Divisional Series. 2014, off the top of my head, I can't think what they did, but I want to say they lost the Divisional Series that year. But if you see, the trend there is that they're getting over these humps every year. So the biggest hump that they need to get over now is becoming champions. They have the experience. I mean, this is just another year for the Dodgers. But at the same time, I think they're sick of losing. So, I mean, that's bad for a team like Milwaukee, who is really new to this whole thing. So we'll see how it fares. And especially with, you can draw a lot of positives from what the Brewers did to the Rockies, but at the same time, the important thing is Lorenzo Cain did not have a good series against the Rockies. And the other name I'm trying to think of here, not Moustakis, not Shaw. Yelich didn't have a phenomenal series. I mean, it was a good series, but he could have hit the ball a little bit more. But he did get on base. He did get a home run. But really, it felt like it was Moustakis, Shaw, Kraft, and Braun kind of put in a little bit of effort, too. It wasn't just Yelich alone in that. Aguilar was the other one I'm thinking of. So Cain and Aguilar definitely have to hit the ball if the Brewers are going to advance.
Well, it's funny. I think you might have talked yourself into picking the Dodgers, but it looks like you're going to stick with the Brew Crew heading to the World Series, and it should be really fun if we get Brew Crew versus Houston or the Boston Red Sox, and even potentially the New York Yankees doing a monkey wrench into everything and coming back into the series. Paul, you have always, just like always, are amazing with your time, dropping some amazing knowledge. We're getting ready to close out maybe this ALDS series between the Yankees and Red Sox. We're looking forward to Brewers, Dodgers, and NLCS, and a potential ALCS matchup between the Yankees, Red Sox, and the Astros, who are waiting for their AL East opponent. Paulie, thank you so much, buddy. You got a football game this Friday you want to promote?
This Friday, I'll be covering a really big one. Prairie Ridge is hosting Cary Grove, Fox Valley Conference. You got Cary Grove is number 1 in Class 6A. They're 7-0. Prairie Ridge is number 3 at the last poll. I haven't seen the ones they released today, but I would imagine Prairie Ridge is still number 3 in Class 6A. Of course, they're the reigning champions of 6A from last year, but it's a different football team. But it's a big rivalry. I'm looking forward to covering it, and you can catch that on nwherald.com. That's the Northwest Herald. It's the game of the week. It kicks off at 7 p.m. Central Time, and my partner, Jimmy Musial, and I look forward to bringing that game to you guys.
Really proud of you, man. You're a man of many trades, and you're on that grind, and can't wait to see what else goes on for you guys as we get ready for the end of this postseason and kicking off the rest of this football season. And it never ends, buddy, and you're always on top of it. He is our baseball analyst here from Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network, play-by-play guy, and just all-around good dude. He is our friend, Paul Chivari. Paulie, thank you, man.
Thanks, Mike. Looking forward to the next one.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing, buddy? Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
All right, friends. Before we get up out of here, we want to give you a quick programming note. Next episode of Sports from the Couch, we will do a complete analysis and breakdown of the 2018-2019 NBA season as it kicks off the day of the next episode of Sports from the Couch. And we will also look into our counterparts in the rink as we will take a look into the National Hockey League. So it's going to be a very fun winter sports themed episode of Sports from the Couch on the next episode here on the Mercado Airwaves Network.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of Sports from the Couch. on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I want to thank you guys so much for making us a part of your day. You can follow us all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at mmercado2333. I'm on Instagram at MikeMercado2333. If you want to follow Alex on Twitter, he's at Mercado21Alex, and on Instagram, Mercado2121. And you can follow Nicole on Twitter and Instagram just at typing when tipsy. We're on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves, so give us a like. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Mercado Airwaves Network. And just download us anywhere you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Do us a huge favor. Like, rate, review, and share it. It means the world to us. Thank you to our sponsors over at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. If you want to hear our interviews ad-free or before anybody else with celebrities and athletes, just find us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And of course, thank you to Munch Art Design for powering everything you see here on the network. Give them a like on Facebook at Munch Art Design. For everybody here at the Mercado Airwaves Network, I'm Mike Mercado. We'll see you in the next episode of Sports from the Couch. You're tuned into the Mercado Airwaves Network.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day that the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.